Hello, everybody, and welcome to another one of our series of catch-ups with Today we're with Simon Yates from Banks's Brewery. Hi, Simon.
Morning, Paul. Good to be here. Yeah, very good. Honoured to be invited to join your new series of podcasts. Thanks for that.
Great. No problem. And thank you for agreeing to do it. We're for the benefit of those who don't know Simon, perhaps Simon, you could introduce yourself and just say a bit about what you do.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Paul. I'm the assistant head brewer at Banks's Brewery in Wolverhampton, which historically has been part of Marston's. Latterly, of course, now part of the joint venture, which is the Carlsberg Marston's Brewing Company. I've been doing it for quite a while, brewing, since I left school, in fact, when I joined Davenport's in Birmingham, which some of you may remember, mainly for their TV adverts, I guess. And then once I'd got fully qualified at Davenport's, I jumped ship and moved to Banks's and been there ever since. So yeah, a few miles on the clock, but still brewing.
Tell us how many miles that is, Simon? How many years?
Oh, how's your maths? 1975 I joined the industry, which is really years.
Yeah. 46 years nearly then.
Yeah.
46. Well, congratulations, that's a fantastic achievement.
Thank you.
I thought I'd been a long time at Faram's with 31 years, but 46 years, that's amazing. Really good. I'm not trying to make you feel old, by the way.
No, it's too late for that, Paul.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, on the 5 minutes of Faram's, we have a set list of questions, and they're sort of pretty rapid fire. But as we're now recording this, we'll perhaps expand some of those answers a little bit as we go along. Let's see how we go. So the first one's, what's your favourite hop, Simon?
Yeah, well, again, I tend to waffle on about these things. I categorise it into UK and non-UK, I guess. I like Admiral because I think it's a bit underrated. We used to use it as a dual purpose for bittering and aroma and flavour, but latterly we're just using it for flavour. I think amongst the English and UK hops, it's a bit underrated, as I mentioned, because it's got a big orangey component that comes through as a Seville orange marmalade sort of note, which is, you could easily confuse that with some of the American varieties. I think it's quite high in myrcene, which probably contributes to that. Bit boring with the worldwide hops. I still haven't found anything I like much better than Citra, which isn't necessarily the most exciting answer because everybody likes Citra, I know. But it's very versatile. It brings a lot to the party. It's got very complex flavour. I'm saying this like nobody knows it, but I think everybody uses it.
No, it's a good hop.
But there are a lot of very good hops around that have come along since Citra was born, but
I think nowadays there's a lot more new varieties coming through. In fact, I was talking to our guys in the US office recently, and they were saying that in the US there is some new variety. People are getting a little bit overawed with the new variety, bit new variety negativity. New variety sort of coming through. But I think we've got to continue to try and push with the new varieties, because you never know what you might discover that tastes good. So
absolutely, and obviously your development program is very important for the future of the UK hop industry.
Yeah, we're trying hard on that one. Trying hard, yeah, no, excellent. And the most difficult question, I'm sure, well, I think I get asked, and I'm sure for you as well, what's your favourite beer?
Yeah, I get asked that quite a lot. It's a difficult one because that changes almost by the day. I mean, I've got my own favourites, not just looking at it from a nepotistic viewpoint, the ones that I've created and brewed. Sunbeam and the Shipyard range, always mentioned in dispatches, but the old favourites like Landlord and do love Proper Job. Our old friend's creation, who's sadly no longer with us, but it's a fantastic beer.
Yeah,
always look out for that.
Yeah.
The one that's caught my attention most recently was one I picked up in one of the big supermarkets from Vacation, who are a very, very good range of beers that they do. The regular beers are quite superb, I think, for hop forward beers. But this one, I think it's probably a limited run. It's a collab with Sure Shot called 15 Mile Round Trip. So it's a big one. It's a double IPA. It's 8%, but its hop character is fantastic, and sadly a bit too drinkable at times.
Well, 8% and too drinkable could be a dangerous combination, can't it?
Yeah. It's so I've got a few of those still in the fridge at home.
Very good, very good.
And talking of vacation, I mean, there's quite a few good breweries up in that part of the world. Magic Rock spring to mind, Northern Monk. There's a lot of good new brewers. London, there's dozens, if not hundreds now. Beavertown, Fort Pure. Always good to
absolutely. And I know you yourself do like tasting these beers from smaller brewers, and do support the smaller brewers very well with particularly in the local area. I mean, I think as somebody who gets heavily involved in new product development and such like, and it's important to find out what's out there. Well, that's the excuse I make. I just like drinking them, really. But you have to keep abreast of things that are moving around, and it's great fun. Absolutely.
And obviously with moving around the country, which we're not doing at the moment, but in normal times, it's a great opportunity to do that.
Absolutely, yeah. There's nothing better than going to a local region and finding some of the local beer and trying the different flavours. It's all part of the fun of it, isn't it, really? So next question, what's your favourite food and beer pairing?
That's another good one. Big fan of seafood. So I'd probably say scallops in particular. And jumbo prawns, I think. That's probably what I'd go for, and pair it with a nice hoppy shipyard beer, I guess.
Nice.
Yeah,
very good. And your favourite beer destination?
I mean, there's lots. Again, too numerous to mention almost. London obviously springs to mind, but I think I'd probably plump for Bruges in Belgium, obviously. Been going there for quite a while, since my probably mid-late 20s, and been going back relatively frequently ever since. But discovering Belgian beer in the first place was a fantastic experience, because there's so many different beer styles, including things like sours, which take a bit more time to get used to, but a bit more commonplace nowadays. But going back, you keep seeing new bars cropping up, and sadly old bars disappearing sometimes as well. But there are some absolutely fantastic bars there. I don't know if you've ever been, Paul, but
I've been a couple of times. It's an amazing place.
Some of the bars are jaw-dropping, really, and great ranges of beers, and it's always interesting. And of course, it's a great place to visit, just for its intrinsic value anyway, the architecture and the chips.
Good chips there.
Chips and chocolates. Yeah.
There you go. Very good. No, fantastic place. Is it on the Lake Shore? Say Bristol. You like Bristol as well? Yeah,
Bristol. Traveling around the country, watching rugby and football and such like, you get to a few of these places. Bristol's really come up on the rails, I think, in the last probably 5 years or so. So had a few tours around there, and it really has got some stunning beers and pubs and brewery taps and such like. It's definitely, and it's a nice place. And it's pulled its socks up visually, I think, over the years. Whereas at one time it was a bit down at heel, and it's now vibrant, especially around by the sort of dockyard area.
We had a brewery resource roadshow event there it's probably 3 years ago now, before you forget about all the time in the middle with COVID, but probably 3 years ago. And we had a little bit of a pub crawl the night before and had some fantastic beers and some fantastic bars. It was great fun, really good place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And the next question, what's your favourite pub in the UK? Another hellishly difficult question, because there are probably so many.
I've been in one or two. Well, where to begin? Start at the very beginning, I suppose. When I was probably a lot younger than I should have been, the Bull and Bladder in Briley Hill was a place we used to like going. It wasn't right on the doorstep, but we used to make a few mile trip to get there every so often to drink Bathams. It wasn't where I cut my drinking teeth necessarily, but that was a very much a highlight of going around drinking in my early youth. And nowadays we use the Great Western before a Wolves game, which is walking distance from the ground, and it's a Holden's pub, but they also sell Bathams. Bit of a theme developing. Well, nowadays there's so many great pubs, and hopefully they'll still all be there. The ones I remember as being great when we come out of this mess.
Of course, yeah.
Well, where to begin with that as well? Norwich is another place I always enjoy visiting. Couple of very good pubs there. The Fat Cat, which everybody's heard of, perhaps less well known, is the Plasterers, which back in the day, many years ago, was a very good real ale pub, and I think it went through a bit of a fallow period. So now we're bang back on form. Hopefully this is still current next time we go, when Norwich get promotion. It's a great range of beers they have. It's a smallish and cosy pub, but they have a great range of both cask and progressive keg beers. So that's another great one I like. I've mentioned the White Horse in Hedgeley, which is not far away from Beaconsfield, which is the classic English country pub. If you've got a visitor from overseas, particularly an American, say, coming over and you wanted to show them the archetypal country pub, that's the one. I've
never been there. I'll have to look that one up.
Yeah, it's just off the M40.
Okay.
Just a 5-minute drive.
Beautiful.
The Sheffield Tap's a good one in Sheffield. It's a sister pub to the Euston Tap, which pretty much everybody who ever goes to London from down that particular line will know.
Yeah.
Big fan of Holyrood 9A in Edinburgh, and I've been up there for rugby. That's a very crafty sort of place, but it concentrates on local Scottish beers, which I think is important when you're visiting an area.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good.
I suppose if I had to pick the winner, there's a lot of great pubs in London, right enough, but just off Twickenham Green, there's a pub called the Sussex Arms, which is a fabulous pub with a great garden. It's walking distance to Twickenham as well. Fantastic range of cask and keg beer. So yeah, we'll go with the Sussex Arms, I guess. Very
good, well done. Yeah, it's a nice pub there. I've been there a few times. Great spot. Yeah, great spot.
Love it.
One item in the brewery you couldn't live without.
Yeah, that took a bit of thought. It's really high tech. I don't think it's basically a polypropylene pole that's about 12 feet long, with a plate welded perpendicularly to one end with lots of little holes drilled in, and we use this for dissipating type 90 hops in our open fermenters to dry hop properly and making sure they don't float around on the surface and they break up and we get all the oils out, which is the objective. So yeah, that gets used quite a lot by me as well.
The high tech kit is always the best, isn't it?
Yeah, very rustic.
Rustic, yes.
Craft
Very good. And your favourite song, album, artist, or piece of music to play during a brew day?
Yeah, we don't have a lot of music in the brewery. We although we did have some contractors in who recently who seemed to think they were a cross between Judge Jules and who's the other DJ? I've forgotten his name now. Pete Tong, that's the boy. Playing Ibiza style music into the night while they were doing their welding. I was half expecting a foam party when I went down to our area they were working. But we don't normally have music on during the brewery, but I'm a music fan. So I listen to it on the way into work and on the way home quite frequently. I quite like to listen to music I haven't heard before. So I listen to Six Music on BBC a lot. And that introduces you to a lot of new people. Some rather interesting names. The Lovely Eggs, a husband and wife duo from Brighton, who are doing sort of 60s psychedelia.
Wow.
Which I found quite interesting, and a band from Melbourne in Australia called King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, which is a bit of a mouthful. They're interesting. They produce something like 2 albums a year, very prolific.
Right.
But their shtick is sort of, they almost sound Middle Eastern. They do things like tune the guitar slightly differently to give you a different sound. And I've only recently been listening to them. I've got 2 or 3 of their albums.
Very good. Well, I can quite honestly say you've broadened my mind there, Simon. I haven't heard of either of those before. So
yeah. Thanks to Steve Lamack.
Very good.
For most of this, but that's what I've been listening to recently.
Fantastic. And if you weren't in the brewing industry, what would you be doing?
Drinking, I guess. I think I've done a little bit of. I'm a member of the Beer Writers Guild, so yeah, I quite enjoy putting pen to paper when I've got time, which isn't that frequently. So maybe writing, maybe about beer.
Very good, very good. And who is your biggest inspiration in brewing?
When I joined the industry at Davenport, obviously I was effectively a trainee, an apprentice almost. I started in the laboratory there and then moved into production management trainee sort of status. So you're learning the ropes, you're learning everything, including getting in a mash tun and chucking that out by hand in your shorts and wellies, the whole gamut of everything, cleaning fermenting vessels and what have you. But from a technical standpoint and an attitude standpoint, I guess I'd say Alec Pennycook. He's still brewing. He's got his own brewery in Gloucestershire at Stanway House, which he set up, I guess that's a while ago now, 20 odd years.
He's been coming in here for 20 years, picking up his malt and his hops. It's great to see him. We'll have a chat when we can.
Yeah, very meticulous, very brusque and to the point, but very meticulous and a great brewer. His motto was attention to detail. He did have one or two other mottos, but for a family show, I guess we brush over those. But yeah, he was a big influence. In a more general sense, I plumped for Sean Franklin. He used to have his own brewery near Harrogate, but he was the guy. I think you'll correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think he introduced the Cascade hop to Blighty.
And Chinook, I think Sean was using in his early days. Chinook came in through Sean, and in fact, Sean was the person who introduced me to the article, which was showing. It was a New Zealand article, and it was showing how vacuum-packed leaf hops was stored much better than a pocket or a Type 90 pellet. And this was what set us on the road to doing the fresh packs, the vacuum packed leaf hops, many years ago. So I've got Sean to thank for that. So we both have a bit of an inspiration there from Sean.
Yeah, very much so.
Excellent. And what got you into brewing in the first place?
Well, there's one or two tales I'll tell about that, but I with a surname of Yates, that's an anagram of yeast. I suppose there was a bit of a nudge there. So yeah, you could call it destiny.
Destiny, there you go. Written in the stars, or written in your surname.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. But yeah, vaguely lent towards the sciences while I was at school, so I had to find something broadly in that direction that appealed. I think going back many years ago on family holidays with my mum and dad, I started collecting beer mats, which gave you a bit of an interest in beer brands and such like. Yeah. The other story I tell is that the school I went to, in addition to having people there who ended up in the brewing industry as well, little did we know in those days, but my best mate Ian Davis, who I think you probably know, who helped found Kimber Brewery, was there. Martin Birchned brewer at Batham's was there, and of course Tim Batham himself was there.
There you go. Yeah.
Bit of a school of brewers.
Yes, absolutely.
But we did have a career speech from our headmaster when we got to a certain point in our scholastic lifetime. But he made some sort of glib joke about you could even do brewing at university. Ha ha ha. So I thought, being a bit of a rebel, that'll do me. Yeah, okay. So wrote round to all the local breweries to see if anything was happening, and Davenport's offered me a job as a lab tech.
Fantastic. No, that's a great story. It's amazing how these little things that just point you in certain directions are come along at that sort of age. I mean, I remember having sort of a similar sort of thing when I was a bit younger. When you get these decisions, you can go one way or another, and pointing you in one direction. We would never be here now if we'd gone the wrong way. Or maybe it would have been the right way to go. Who knows? There you go.
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think either of us would say we've gone the wrong way. It's a fantastic industry to be involved with.
Yeah.
Your favourite beer festival?
Well, I've been going to the Great British almost since its inception. I know there were one or two festivals perhaps before I went, but I certainly went to one at Ali Pali, which was one of the very early ones. I think that was before they had a fire as well, didn't they? As well, I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So yeah, okay. For many years, it was the big one and the one that basically represented all that was best in the world of beer. It's one of many now, but I still enjoy going. And the trade day is a great day where you meet and everybody else in the industry.
No, it is great fun, isn't it? Get on that train, the excitement before you get down there. We always zip into the Man, Bear and Bishop in Paddington Station and have a bacon sarnie and a pint before we get to the actual festival, and then of course meeting everybody, you say, at the festival. It's a great day out and great fun to meet everybody and have a few beers.
Yeah, very much so. There are a lot of more crafty beer festivals that are springing up. We used to have one in Birmingham. It's been on and off over the last few years, which was pretty good. But Indie ManCon in Manchester, I've been to that a couple of times, and that was excellent.
Very good.
Some very interesting beers there.
Yeah. Is that the one in the Baths?
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, it's great, isn't it? Yeah, really good.
It is. Yeah, you don't get the same breadth of number of brewers and beers, but it's all solid quality. It's excellent. Great atmosphere there as well.
Excellent. Next question: what's your favourite interest, hobby outside brewing?
Well, we've already touched on that a little bit. Music and sport. Wolves fan, as you've heard me say. Northampton Saints rugby. Music, I just mentioned that. I suppose that the ultimate sporting experience for me was going on the first British and Irish Lions tour in 2013 to Australia, and we went again to New Zealand. It was that good 4 years later. Sadly, it looks like the South African tour is going to be denied to us this time, but it is something else because you get close on 30,000 people descend on the country and the town or the city where the tests are being held, and everybody wears red. They talk about the sea of red, and it really is something else. And I really hope that they can keep it going and resurrect it in some form for this year.
Fingers crossed. I know it's on my list of things I need to do, and I was hoping to go on this trip this year, but. Maybe next time. We'll have to see how that one goes, but I definitely want to do that. And sounds like great fun.
Indeed. And of course, travel and sport and music to a lesser extent give you a great opportunity to drink beer and different beers and new beers.
Absolutely. Especially with lots of rugby fans, they tend to be good beer drinkers, don't they?
They do, yes. I think sometimes some of them tend to be more volume related rather than quality, but hey,
Absolutely. Next question: what's the last beer you brewed?
The last beer I'd have to look outside the door and see what we're brewing today, but the last beer we brewed that's a little bit different. Bit of a story. We've got a relationship with a customer who supplies bars in France with interesting beers, collabs that we do with brewers from all over the world. It's along the same lines as the Wetherspoons Beer Festival, because he also sources the brewers, the overseas brewers for the two Wetherspoons Beer Festivals that are held each year, and hopefully he'll come back soon. But the idea is that a brewer comes over to the UK and brews with us for this particular exercise, and we do one of their beers brewed on our kit here at Banks's, and that goes out into trades. Now, the one that we've been doing currently, there are 6 per year, and it's a series that goes to the craft beer bars in France. We've done, I can't remember how many now, 7 or 8. We've brewed with Richard Adamson from Young Henry's in Sydney. who else have we done? We've brewed with Spike's Brewery, Terrapin in Georgia.
Yeah.
But the latest beer that we did was actually, because of the COVID situation with people not being able to come across, the guest brewer was me. So I collabed with myself on a beer.
That should have been interesting, I'm sure.
Yeah. We still argued.
You didn't fall out over the recipe.
No, that was easy. But the idea behind the recipe was it was all English hops. So what I wanted to do, it was called New Wave Ipa. What I wanted to do was showcase some of the new hops, obviously some of the ones that you produced, Jester and Molly Carr. What else was in there? Endeavour. One or two of the older ones with a bit more punch, such as Admiral. And we used some of the new Type 45 Jester in there as well to dry hop it.
Yeah.
And that got some really good reviews from people who tasted it. So I think Wetherspoons may well be interested in having it for the next festival, but we'll have to wait and see about that.
Nice. Yeah, very good.
The beers we sent to France are in keg.
I was very lucky enough to have a taste of that, and it was excellent. Yeah, so yeah, very good. Yeah, really good indeed. Very drinkable, and it was a bit stronger as well. What 6%, wasn't it? So
yeah, it was. The ones from France, they're in keg, but they all tend to be IPA style beers by and large, with in and around the 5.5 to 6.5% range. So yeah,
definitely something to go back to if I see it again in anywhere. If I'm lucky enough to see it anywhere, it sounds as though it'll only be available in France. So,
well, yeah, who knows? Maybe
the Wetherspoons.
Yeah, I think you know Dave Walcott, don't you?
Yeah.
He tried it and was very enthusiastic about it. So we'll see.
Hey, if you're listening, get it into the Wetherspoons for us. We need to try it. Good stuff. And the question we ask all of our 5 minutes with Faram's guests, and it's a pretty short one, is Fuggles or Goldings?
Whoa, I'd probably plump for Goldings. Quintessential British hop. Fuggles, of course, it's great hop, but suffering a little bit with thinning out due to wilt issues, which I'm telling you like you don't know. But yeah, it's a little bit under threat. I know we've got it growing in one or two overseas conditions where wilt isn't prevalent, but so we hope it hangs in there because we use a lot of it. But yeah, I go with Gold.
And for any
very long answer to a very short question.
Yeah, no, that's no problem. For any of our guests who are listening who don't know what Verticillium wilt is, it's a disease that attacks the roots of the plant, and Fuggles is particularly sensitive to it, and therefore we have lost quite a lot of acreage of Fuggles over the years. But we have clones of Goldings which are resistant to it, so we can grow those in the UK still. Unfortunately, Fuggles are very difficult to grow in the soil where there is wilt, and they do pick it up very quickly. Fuggles pick it up very quickly if there's any hint of it about in the area or in the soil. So it is exactly as Simon says, very difficult to grow those longer term here.
Yeah.
So what's next for the brewery, or what can we look forward to from the brewery?
Well, we've spoken a bit about collaborative brews, which we enjoyed immensely. Our latest collaboration is with Carlsberg, of course, in the joint venture. So we're now we've joined forces. Marston's have joined forces with Carlsberg UK as was to join to form the Carlsberg Marston's Brewing Company. So there's a lot of exciting stuff going on, a lot of work being done to get the two companies melded together, integrated properly, and to yield all the savings that might bring. No problems from a brewing perspective. They're very keen that we're very strong in ale, and we're very keen that they're strong in lager. So there's a sales synergy there as well, and a lot of opportunities around those two strengths. So they're not looking to do anything that's going to change the way we do things, and they're very keen for us to carry on doing the good work that we've been doing, and good financial performance as well from a beer company perspective. So there's plenty of exciting plans, and I think they're keen for us to do some brewing for them as well. So that's going to be fantastic stuff.
Very good.
I'm not sure it could be special brew, but I'm sure it'll be something very interesting. The other thing we've touched on, this collaborative thing, we've got a program for 2021, which is obviously going to be affected by the COVID thing, and it's predicated on when France can get back up to speed in terms of their bar and hospitality operations. But we've been given a program of brewers which look fantastic, to be honest. Some big names on there from all over the world. We've got brewers from Canada, Hawaii, South Africa, Australia, and a very big name from the States. A very big name from the States. So fingers crossed it'll come to pass.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great. Yeah.
I can't tell you who they all are, but the brewery from the States, you don't see their beers over here very often, but they're very well renowned, and I think most people will have heard of them. So yeah.
Sounds exciting, Simon. Sounds
very exciting indeed. Yeah.
Well, that's great. I mean, the 5 minutes with Farams has turned into probably something like half an hour of Farams, but I really appreciate your time, Simon. It's been fascinating getting it inside your mind a little bit and finding out a little bit more about you and the history and what you're up to. So fascinating catch up. I really thank you for joining us, and hope that everything comes out of the lockdown successfully for you. I'm sure it will, and there'll be better days ahead for all of us. Fingers crossed. I think that's we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah. There's light at the end of the tunnel.
Light at the end of the tunnel, indeed. Yeah. Thanks again, Simon. And I'm sure all of our listeners will be equally pleased that you've shared some info with us and some stories. It's been great fun catching up. And I hope that those who joined us today will join us again on our next catch up, which I think we're doing another one in a couple of weeks' time. But please do tune in and catch up with the next time with Farams. And thanks again, Simon. We'll see you again soon.
My pleasure. Thanks, Paul.